So Parshas Chaya Sara, which means, who knows what it means?
What?
Torah portion Chaya Sara. So Sara is the first matriarch, right? Abraham's wife. Chaya means Chai.
Oh, to life.
Life.
The life of Sara. And today there's a very interesting insights into the Torah portion. You know, in the past we've discussed the search for Eliezer, who is the right-hand man of Abraham to find a wife for Isaac, which we know is Rebecca. We've discussed her kindness and the whole story, how she gives water to the camels. I'm going to tell the story. Yeah. And we've touched a lot on that. So I thought today I would take a different part of the story because the Torah portion is packed. And before I start, I want to share a story I just read, and I'll tell you why it touched me so deeply after I share the story, is that this story is a story of this rabbi in Israel. And he went to the Mount Olives, because a lot of people are buried in Mount Olives, a lot of Rebbes, a lot of Jews. And he comes to the Mount Olives and he sees a very weird sight. He sees a young man davening by the Breslover Rebbe's gravesite. And now he has long side locks, long payas. But that wasn't the weird part. He also had a huge ponytail. And it's like seeing a guy in a shtreimel with a nose ring, in a sense. It's like a paradox, you know? So he doesn't want to say anything, so he starts chatting him up. But he's really intrigued, because a guy with long side locks doesn't usually have a ponytail, right? And a guy with a ponytail doesn't necessarily have long side locks. But in Israel, you know, anything goes. So finally, he chats him up. And the guy also has this gorgeous reddish blonde hair in the ponytail. So it's not only a regular ponytail. And he chats him up. Where are you? I'm from America. Why are you here? He says, I come every day. I like to pray here, the young man says. And he's trying to get information, you know, like a real, you know, like Jews, we like to ask questions. So finally, he can't resist. He says to him, what's with the payas and the long ponytail? The guy says, I'll tell you, he says, the young fellow, like college age. He says, I grew up in Muncie, a very, very strict parents, very harsh parents, but really my grandparents raised me because they're much more gentle. And in our community in Muncie, which you know is there's a very Hasidic element there, a very frum element, a young girl was diagnosed with cancer and she lost all her hair. And everyone told me, you know, she has the same color hair as you. And no one can make her a wig of her hair color because it was such an unusual color. So he said, I decided I'm going to grow my hair long and I'm going to give her my hair. And then the wig person will make her a beautiful wig because our hair color was identical, like brother and sister, even though she's a stranger. He said, when I started to grow my hair, my parents were angry. A yeshiva boy with long hair. How does it look? How is it going to reflect on us? So he said, I traveled to Israel. I decided I'll stay here for 6-7 months. I'll grow up my hair. I'll cut my hair and I'll bring it back to America for her to make a wig. So that's why I have payas and long hair. And the fellow tells the story. He says, look how we look at somebody and we right away judge. Oh, weirdo, payas, long hair. We don't realize that there's so many backstories to things that happen with people. And you always, you know, I would also judge. I would see somebody, what a weirdo. He has a nose ring. He's wearing a yarmulke. What's going on here? So when I read the story this morning, I'm like, you know, it really touched me. I'll tell you why, because I felt like for me, this is personal, such a lesson. Never judge a book. I hate to use the cliche by its cover. You don't know what's going on with people. You don't know what's going on in life. And so I decided this morning I have to be less judgmental, me more open, even though I feel I'm a little open, but I could be more. And now I thought, how does it tie into the Torah portion? Is because we read the stories of the matriarchs and the patriarchs, and we sometimes, like I met a woman and she told me, yeah, I read the red tent those matriarchs, boy, were they mean and tough. And I'm like, you don't have the real story. You don't have the story of the ponytail with the side locks. You have to study Torah to get the story. You can't just read it as a superficial story. So anyway, that's my connection. If anyone else has another connection, let me go ahead. What do you want to say, Margaret?
No, I said it's very good. Very memorable. Yeah.
So the Torah portion starts out very cryptically, and I mentioned this so many times, but I'll quickly mention it. The life of Sarah, but open up the first pasuk. And what's the first pasuk? Anybody remember? What's the first thing it tells us in Chaya Sara, the life of Sarah? Anybody can remember? Why is it so cryptic? Anybody remember? It says Vatama Sara. Sarah died. She was 127 years old and she passes away. Why did she pass away? Because she heard that her son was sacrificed on the altar. And so she had a heart attack and she passes away. So the question is, the Torah portion says the life of Sarah, and yet her whole story is in the previous Torah portion. So why wouldn't we name the previous Torah portion the life of Sarah? This is actually the passing of Sarah. The reason I mentioned how she passed away is because it's very painful. She's finally given a child. They finally have a little bit of peace and quiet. And boom, she hears her husband took her son and he's gone. She's never going to see him again. She doesn't hear the story of how he was saved. So it's heartbreaking. So why is it called the life of Sarah? So I'll start with a little parable, because this Torah portion shows us and teaches us what is life. What is life? How do you find your meaning, your purpose, your happiness in life? How do you find your deeper purpose or your meaning? And when you wake up in the morning, you feel accomplished, you feel happy, you feel satisfied, you feel you know yourself. How do we find this very enigmatic, elusive answer for ourselves? And what is the secret of the Torah, of the eternity of people, of the Jewish people? What is our secret? Why are we still even here? It's all connected, because the secret to life is the secret why we're still here. Why haven't we fallen and disappeared after all the tragedies that our people have gone through? And even now, we're still fighting, we're still standing. Did you just see the beautiful, how one of the hostages proposed to his former girlfriend, he hadn't seen her, and they're getting married? You would think, oy vey, he just came out of prison, he just came out of the most horrific situation. Wait a while, he's getting married. This is the key. What is the key? And in this Torah portion, we find the key of marriage and of what life is. What is really life all about? So there's a story, a parable of a man who's summoned to the king. The king calls him. It can't be good. Why is the king summoning me? I'm in trouble. He's going to behead me. Who knows what he wants from me? So he calls his three best friends. He says, I was summoned by the king. You must come with me. It's very scary. So his three best friends agreed to accompany him. As they're traveling to the king, one friend says, I've accompanied you to the edge of town. That's it for me. Further, I can't go with you. I can't. Who knows what lay ahead? And he deserts him. They go further. They come to the gates of the palace. And the second friend says, my dear friend, I have accompanied you to the gates of the palace. I did my due diligence. Now I must take off. I really cannot accompany you further. He's left with one friend. And his friend says to him, I am going to go in with you. I'm going to meet the king with you. I'm going to be with you every step of the way. I will not leave your side. And together they go into the king, not knowing what to expect. And this is the story of Chaya Sara and the story of life. We go through life. We 3 friends. The first friend, our wealth, our materialism, our materialistic pursuits, our success story. And up to a point, that's very satisfying, fulfilling. I've made it. Then comes to your funeral, not to be morbid, your family, your friends, your rabbi, your minister, whoever comes, puts you into the ground, buries you, and then they leave. Their job is done. But there's one friend, there's one ally, there's something that accompanies you way through your life and continuing even when seemingly you're no longer here, your body is buried, but your soul lives on. And that is the Torah, the mitzvahs, this connection to God that takes you to wherever you are, and never, never leaves your side. Because that is the eternal connection that we have. Everything else accompanies us through life. Very good. We can't complain. But what takes you through and never leaves you is your Torah, your mitzvahs, your spiritual godly connection, your neshama. So that's what life is. The story, I told it a few years ago. Tell me if you remember it, I'll skip it. There was a very, very wealthy, he was actually a religious Jew, one of the wealthiest Jews. It's a true story. And he passes away. And when it comes time to read the will, tell me if you remember the story, I won't repeat it. One of the contingencies is he wants to be buried in who remembers? In his socks. Here's a pair of socks. I insist on be buried in my socks. The kids feel like, oh wait, he's a multi-millionaire. He wants to be buried in his socks. That's the first half of the will. The rest of the will not be read till after the burial. So it's a religious frum family. They call up the Rav, the rabbi, and they go, Rabbi, we know that there's shrouds, but our father in his will insisted he be buried in his socks that he provided. The rabbi says, no, it's against halacha. It's against Jewish law. No, you can't be buried in the socks. So they go to a few other rabbis. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe there's a leniency. We have to do what our father asked. They can't get any leniency. They're heartbroken that they can't fulfill their father's final wish. So they bury him, but without the socks, because the rabbi said no, and the Torah is the last say. They come back to the lawyer's office, and he takes up the second part of the will, and he bequeaths the money to his children. But before he writes a letter, my dear children, you have buried me without my socks. But I want you to know, I want you to realize, though I'm bequeathing you tremendous wealth, know one thing, that even with your socks, you can't be buried. In other words, you can't take anything with you. You have to give it for tzedakah. What can you take with you? Your spiritual endeavors, your mitzvahs, your Torah, whatever you've accomplished. But you can't take your money or your socks with you. It won't happen.
Oh, I have chills.
So I read this story a few years ago, and I'm like, wow, it's really, the father was a smart man, Look how he pushed home the point with his kids. Amazing. So Chaya Sara, the opening verse, is that when you know the value of a person, not only through their lifetime, you say, wow, she was something else. What she did for people, what he did, what he gave, what he accomplished, what he taught. But when a person passes away, that's when you see who they were. Do their teaching, their life's mission, the impact, the education of their family live on? Or the kids say, okay, Papa's gone, time to live life. Mama's gone, time to do whatever we want. Or do the appearance or your rabbi, whatever, instill in you the impact, and the next generation continues the impact, the teachings, the acts of goodness and kindness in our world. That's the quintessential question of Chaya Sara. You look in the mirror and you go, what will I be remembered for? What impact will I have that even when, God forbid, I'm gone, will my teachings, my lessons, my example live on in the next generation, even in a small way. Even in a small way. We do things that are, even now you speak to women about Pesach, right? My grandmother made the best brisket in the world. My Zayda, the way he made Kiddush on the wine, no one makes Kiddush on the wine. Even these little things are not little things. This is what we impart in the next generation. I have so many of my own Baba Zayda stories. I always share them, the honey cake, and the Jewish traditions live on through us. So even in a small way, you don't have to be the greatest leader, rabbi in the world to be an impact, even in your own little Dalet Amis, in your own little home, what you impart to your husband, your children, your friends. What kind of example do you set for others? This is what Chaya Sara is really about. It's quite practical if you think about it. And there's something very interesting in this Torah portion that as Abraham, as we're soon going to hear, negotiates for this plot. Remember, he now has to buy a burial plot. By the way, burial plots are very expensive now. And the Chevra Kadisha, while he's negotiating with the Ephraim, the Hittite, to buy land, and I'll get to that story part in a minute, is a very interesting thing I want to share. That 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times he says the following. 4 times. 4 times the Torah speaks of bury your dead, bury your dead, bury your dead, bury your dead. And the 5th time it says the dead will be buried. So first of all, why so much repetition? And why, if the Torah portion is talking about burying the dead, I need a plot to bury the dead and bury the dead, and it keeps repeating this symphony or this harmony, why the final time the Torah says, and the dead shall be buried? Why? You understand the reversal of the words. All the time it says, bury your dead. Avram wanted to bury his dead, and so on. After he purchases, he's burying the dead. And the answer is what we just discussed, that the righteous, even in death, are considered alive. That's why it says you will bury the dead. You bury them, and then dead is emphasized, because even in death they're alive. And those who are dead, it says, those who are not righteous, you say the dead are being buried because they're dead even when they're alive. I'm sorry if it wasn't clear. Just to repeat one more time. When it's someone who's not righteous, you say the dead are being buried. Why? They're dead even when they're alive. They don't contribute in anything to society or to the world. They're a distraction. They're hurting the world. The righteous, even when they're dead, they're alive. That's why it says bury the dead. You're burying them, they're still alive. Because their life, their contributions live on even after they pass on. So the burial precedes the death because the soul and the legacy lives on. And that's why it says, Yaakov lo meis, Jacob didn't die. Of course he died. What do you mean he didn't die? But what the Torah is saying, his children are alive, his legacy is alive, so he's alive. So 5 times the Torah, in this Torah portion, speaks about burying the dead, you're going to bury the dead. Then it says, and the dead shall be buried. And that refers to Esau, which we'll talk about later if we have time. So again, this ties into the whole thing that a person is alive even after they pass away. But if you have never contributed anything, then even when you're alive, it's as if you're dead. You don't exist. There's no substance to your life. Does anybody want to add anything or say anything about this? Yeah, go, Jane, you want to say something?
No.
Oh. So again, Chaya Sara, the life of Sara, is underlying this whole point that even when she passes away, that's when you see who she was. That's when you see who she truly was, because look what happens later in the story. Isaac marries Rebecca, and she and him become the next matriarch and patriarch. Someone is there to step into her shoes, right away, and take over her legacy and continue her dynasty and what she started. You know, it's very painful for a parent set up, for example, even a business, and the children say, I have no interest in this business. We're just going to let it close. We're not going to continue. I have no interest in this business. Imagine your children continue your business and they multiply your business. Wow, what a nachas from heaven, seeing your children and grandchildren continue your corporation, your Jewish corporation, grow your stock market and your portfolio, your spiritual portfolio, so to speak. So this is the opening of Chaya Sara. Now it discusses, and this is what we're going to get to now, is the purchase of the burial plot. And remember last week I said that sometimes you wonder, why is the Torah so many passages about one topic when it could have been in one pasuk? Abraham goes, he negotiates a price, he buys the burial plot and buries Sarah. There's so many psukim on the negotiation and what happened and the response. I'm going to read it now. So there must be something here, because the Torah, again, is so concise, the written tradition, the written Torah, that if it's highlighted and there's more than one pasuk, one passage, that means there's something in here that we need to discover. So let's read about what happened, and then let's talk about why this is so important for us. So a very interesting thing happens when, if you recall last Torah portion, God says to Abraham, no, I don't want you to sacrifice your son. So Abraham quickly sees in the distance a ram, right? That's why we blow shofar. And he brings this ram to the altar as an offering on the altar to God. Where did he find the ram? So by divine providence, when he turned around to find an offering to thank God for letting him have his son, he sees this ram trotting along. So he runs after the ram, and the ram is by the entrance of a mystical cave. And here the Medrash explains, that's how we know the backstory. Remember I said the Medrash is the harmony. It tells us it enhances the story. He realizes that God just showed him a very special cave. Who can guess which cave this is? It's in Hebron, it's in Israel. The cave of Machpelah. Who's buried in the cave of Machpelah? Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rivka, Isaac and Rebecca. That's 6 couples. And then Jacob and Leah. What happens to Rachel? She's buried, remember, she's buried outside. Cave of Rachel is in Beis Lechem, because she was buried specially in a special place so she could be there for her children when we were exiled from Israel. So she's buried on the outskirts as you're about to leave Israel. So he haps upon this cave and he goes in and he sees, wow, this is the cave of Adam and Chava. This is a very special area. This is where my wife has to be buried. But he doesn't let on. It's owned by these tribes who are living there. Now remember, in Bereshit, God tells Abraham, tells us in the Torah, that he gifted Israel to the Jewish people. And he tells Avram, I'm gifting you the land of Israel. It's your inheritance. So he goes to Ephron, the king of the Hittites, and he starts, the Hittites, to negotiate to buy this land. Right? Now they had a rule, this tribe, that we don't sell land. We don't sell our land. We can lease it to you. We can loan it to you. We can rent it to you. But buying it? No, no, no. But Avram wants to buy it. And we know why he wants to buy it, right? We can all imagine why. Why does he want to buy it? Who wants to spell it out?
To bury Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But more than that.
It's a claim, our claim to Israel.
Excellent. Exactly. It's our claim. If he doesn't buy it and there's no document, there's no paperwork, they'll come back and say, "Wait, you never bought it. We loaned it to you. Now we want it back. It's ours. The loan is up. The rent is up. The lease is up." So he purchased it as proof of the eternal ownership of the cave of Machpelah. So we have now proof that he purchased it for an exorbitant amount of money. Ephron, he goes to Ephron and he says, "I want to buy this cave for full price." He says no. And then he finally negotiates and they sell him the cave of Machpelah and their surrounding area. Okay? Now he owns it and now he buries his beloved wife. That's how we have proof of ownership. Besides that, God gifted us the entire land of Israel. Here we have an eternal document. The first documented purchase in Israel is Abraham buying the cave of Machpelah and the surrounding land to bury his beloved wife Sara. And then the Kabbalah Hasidus says something very powerful. From the sale of this burial plot, you learn the foundation of Jewish marriage. Now, that's very strange. Couldn't God choose a little bit of a different analogy? Marriage is life. Burial is kind of a little morose. Why does the Hasidus, why does Kabbalah say from this story, the Gemara and also the Talmud says, we learn the laws of Kiddush and the laws of marriage. It sounds to me very depressing. No, thank you. I feel that there's another place I can learn the laws of marriage than from a burial. So now, with your kind permission, I'm going to explain why the Torah chooses the burial and the negotiations for the land as an analogy of how a marriage starts, continues, and perseveres. But does anybody want to share what you think? It's okay, share what you think. Do you have any reason to believe that the story of the burial and the plot and the cave is very important in this scenario, really draws us to understand how to conduct a Jewish marriage? Well, it seems very far-fetched. Like I said, I'd rather use a different marriage counseling book, a different, how to have a happy marriage. It must be a different author than the burial plot story. Anybody have any insight, ideas?
All I can think of is when you
Go ahead.
when you're reciting your marriage vows, don't you say "until death do us part"? I don't know.
Okay,
Maybe it's backwards.
That's cute.
Looking back, I don't know.
Even though in a Jewish marriage ceremony we don't say it, but still.
Oh well, okay.
Yeah, no, that's cute. I love that.
Yeah, we say "I love you." I get it. I get it. I get it.
And I like that analogy.
Okay, thought I'd make you laugh. All
I'm
right.
gonna put it in my notes. Jane, you wanted to say something?
The only thing I can think of is at a funeral when we cover the casket with the shovel backwards for love. It's a mitzvah because we're doing something for someone that they can't do for themselves and they can never repay us for. So it's such an important ceremony that you have to look out for that even till the end. I don't know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Remember we discussed the story with the raven and Adam and Chava, how mitzvahs mace, that when you bury the dead, it's the greatest mitzvah because they can never pay you back. That's a beautiful analogy. It's one of the biggest mitzvahs because of that reason. You're doing it for the goodness, not because, he's going to bury me when I need a burial. The person can't, So that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that also, Anybody else want to add anything? You know, they asked a woman, how was your marriage? So she said, before I got married, I was incomplete. And now I'm totally finished. I'm a goner. Anyway, so there's many little insights into this particular commentaries that I'm sharing of why we draw. Why does the Gemara and the Talmud say that this gives us the insight into marriage? So on a very simplest level, it says that how is a woman betrothed to her husband? By money, like a dowry. Okay? That's what the Talmud says. If a man takes a wife, he betroths her with money. By Ephraim, with the purchase of the plot, it says, I will give you money for the field. Avram says, take it of me. So this is one simple insight that we can understand, and the same word that's used for marriage, ki yakach ish isha, is used here, kicha misade, take the field for money. Okay, that's a simple explanation. But now you always have to go deeper, right? That's a simple reason how the Talmud even derives that there might be a connection, because when we mentioned many times that if in one place one Hebrew word is used, it's symbolic that there could be another word, the same word with another scenario. We draw a parallel. There's a reason God used the word kach, when in Hebrew, you know, there's many words for many things, right? Sometimes you could say take. Natan means to give, but also it means to take. There's different Hebrew words you could use, but the fact that they both use the word kach, you know there's some connection. Okay. Where were they buried? Jews are buried where? In a cave, in the ground. There's a beautiful explanation here. The fact that we're buried in a cave, the fact that we're buried on the ground, is not only because it says you came from the earth, you return to the earth, is because marriage is multidimensional. There's external and there's internal. External is you meet a girl or you meet a boy and wow, I'm in love. I'm in love. He's so handsome. She's so gorgeous. He's so smart. She's so kind. He's so ambitious. She's so generous. She's such a good career lady, whatever. You fall in love. That's the external. And it's beautiful. But let me tell you, in a couple of years, the honeymoon is over. He comes out with his ripped pajamas. He's unshaven. He's balding. She comes out without makeup. Her skin is a little saggy. She got a little pot belly from the last child. And he looks at her and she looks at him and I'm like, I'm out of love. This is who I married. This is who I married. I'm out of love. But marriage is not only the external, the one you fell in love with externally. Marriage is, remember that when up in the heavens, you and him were one soul. And when you came down as a baby, your soul was split from your soulmate. You're two halves to one. When you meet and you stand under the chuppah and he puts the ring on your finger and you say, Hareyat Mekadeshesli, you now, those two souls spiritually reunite and you're now one. So it's not so simple as saying, you know what? She's not attracted. I'm not attracted to her. She's not attracted to me anymore. It's over. There's so much more here. You're soulmates. The land was bought for eternity. Avram is not giving back the land, even when it's challenging. Marriage is like a cave. There's the external, you walk in the cave very nice, and then it's deep inside your marriage. Your marriage is connected on a very deep level. And you don't just sever it when the externals fall to the side. You recognize that there is depth, spiritual complex depth to this union. It's not just, okay, we stood under the canopy, we threw rice, we said Mazel Tov, death do us part, Diane. And now it's over because, yeah, I don't like her looks anymore. I don't like her. And besides, she always burns the food. Or rather, he burns the food because the guys are now doing all the cooking. You know the story. There's an anniversary party. This couple's married 50 years. There's a huge party. And the husband then gets up and to speak. He says, my wife, the 50 years have passed like 2 days. 2 days. And everyone's like, wow, what a marriage. So after the toast is over, his best friend comes over. He says, what 2 days? Why didn't you say which 2 days? He says, I couldn't. They're Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. That's how great my marriage was. Tisha B'Av, which is a day of mourning.
Terrible.
Is a day of fasting.
Oh, gosh.
For 2 days. So person, the cave, it teaches us what the depth of marriage. The depth of marriage. The third example, the third analogy is Ephron looks at Avram, who's willing to pay an exorbitant sum for this shmata piece of land. He's like to himself, he's willing to pay me so much money for that piece of land. Remember, he doesn't know about the mystical cave. Only Avram, who's a prophet, knows other Mechav are buried there. So they make the deal, and Ephron comes home to his wife. He says, honey, I made the deal of a lifetime. You have no idea. This Jew, this Israelite, this Abraham, he got ripped off today like no tomorrow. I took him for a song. He paid me money for a piece of land no one would ever think of buying, a rocky cave with some surrounding land. What a shmo he is, what a shlomazel. Now Avram comes home. Baruch Hashem, I was able to purchase this special, mystical, unbelievable cave of Machpelah, Hebron. Wow, for all eternity, we own it now. Legit. No one can contest it. So what's the story? In a marriage, one spouse has to say, wow. Each one has to say, I got the deal of a lifetime. Wow, did I get a catch? This girl is something extraordinary. She's my dream princess. And the girl has to say, boy, I did the best, better. Boy, did I get a handsome prince, generous, kind, smart, sweet. And the mother-in-law, you can't get better than that. So when in a marriage, the Torah is teaching us, every person has to feel they got the better deal. Ephraim thinks he got the better deal. Avram knows he got the better deal. But every person has to look at their spouse and say, wow, I got the better deal. So now the burial is not looking so morose, am I right? It's looking a little nicer. It's looking a little better. I'm looking if there's any other examples. Oh, and the last is that, which I mentioned before, but it's really another little point, is that now Avram purchases the cave of Machpelah for all eternity. It's ours, even though it's being contested all the time. When you get married, it's for all eternity. It's for Olam Vat. That's what it is. That's why when you bless the groom and the bride in Jewish life, you say, Binyan Adayad, an eternal edifice. An eternal edifice. And of course, God forbid, there are times you have to get divorced. Yes, it does happen. And there is Jewish law for that. It's not like it's ignored in Torah, that there could be a marriage that's a mistake, or it wasn't meant to be, or whatever. It didn't work out. No, they didn't put in the effort. You know, sometimes it's a matter of the two parties putting in what needs to be done and not just jumping the ship. So, but we recognize that, but we're talking about that we don't look at divorce as the first, we're not getting along, it's not working out, goodbye. We look at marriage in Jewish life as an eternal connection. But God forbid it doesn't work out and it needs to be divorced for many different reasons. It could be abuse, it could be other things. Of course, the Torah wants no one to be miserable. You can't live a miserable life because you fell into the wrong match. People, break up. That's what happens. They get a get, God forbid. So that's why it says when a Jew gets a get from their spouse, the heavens open up and God cries because it's so painful to God that this couple couldn't work it out. So it's a God, not only the couple is touched, God literally cries when it happens. But again, Torah law does allow, and there is rules, of course, to get a proper divorce, like just like we have in general society. You go to court and you get, God forbid, a divorce. So here we see how Torah views marriage, and how we're using the story of Sarah's burial to highlight what a marriage is. Which I want to mention is that, how do you know also the secret? Now I'm going off to another thought, is we've discussed that in this Torah portion is the secret of Jewish survival. There's the secret of life. Chaya Sara, the life of Sara. What is the secret of life? What is the secret of life? By sharing this analogy that a burial could be compared to marriage, and we say, wow, what a morose way to present marriage. You should present marriage in a more fluffy, romantic analogy. Burial, again, is a morose, unhappy time. No one wants to bury a loved one. It's very sad. This is the secret to Jewish survival. This is the secret of marriage. Go ahead. What do you want to say, Margaret? Why?
No.
Secret?
No, I'm sorry. I had a phone call.
No. Go ahead, please. I'd like when it's discussion.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention for a minute because I had to cancel.
Okay, that's fine. I was asking, is what is the secret to Jewish survival in this analogy as we move forward in the Torah portion? Because what happens next? Avram buries Sarah. Let me paint the picture, then we could discuss. And in this same, I would have liked to end the Torah portion with the passing of Sarah, her burial, and then let's have another Torah portion, how Eliezer goes. Eliezer is a servant of Abraham. He goes, he finds kind Rivka, she feeds the camels, he negotiates a dowry, he brings her back. It's love at first sight. And Isaac loves Rivka, the Torah tells us, and they get married, right? So the Torah portion starts with a passing and ends with a marriage, a beautiful marriage. Love at first sight. Remember, Rivka sitting on the camel. She's being brought back to Israel by Eliezer. And she sees in the distance this very handsome, tall, good-looking fellow. And she says to Eliezer, who's that? He says, that's the one I want you to marry. That's Yitzchak. And it says she slid off her camel because she was so in love. She fell in love with the whole idea. When she saw him, she fell off her camel and she covered her face with a veil. That's how we have the custom of the veil, one of the reasons. We also have the story with Rachel and Leah with the veil. So it ends off with a beautiful, beautiful story. So we start with a burial, and what do we end with? A marriage. So the Torah could have split it up. Let's first deal with the sad tragedy of life, and then we'll move on and we'll continue discussing the future of the Jewish nation, the beautiful marriage. But it's in one Torah portion, because this is the secret of Jewish survival. This is our secret. Not only of Jewish survival, personal survival. So many times we've shared stories of people couldn't get up in the morning. How do you survive the tragedies that have unfolded? Even now with October 7th. Last week I shared the Rosh Chodesh story, the mother, the woman that got the gift from her husband from heaven, and the hostage, Nebuch, I hate to call him a hostage, but the freed hostage is marrying his girlfriend. He hasn't seen in 2 years. They're getting married. You would say, wow, the trauma might be killing him, but no, he's moving on. So the Talmud shares with us, what is the secret and why do we have the burial and the marriage in one Torah portion? Anybody want to share? Girls, don't be shy.
Well, maybe because you're supposed to look forward.
Excellent. Exactly. To build on that point. Go ahead, Debbie.
Well, you create light, it's up to you to create the positive, to keep renewing.
Yeah, exactly. The
And
hope. Go ahead, yeah, Diane.
and maybe you have to have hope. How can you live without hope?
Excellent.
know.
Exactly. No, you all said it very well.
And
I mean, how Israel can carry on now, I mean,
yeah,
it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. And the nation is rebuilding. Think about it. There's not one family in Israel that has not been touched by October 7th, either their son, husband, daughter in the army, a loss, a killing, a death. There isn't one Jewish family in Israel that can not say, I have a cousin, a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle that has not been touched by this and by all previous wars of Israel. There is no one. It's like one country that's one big support system. In America, we have to find, there's a widow support system, support group. There's an orphan support group. There's Alcoholics Anonymous. Israel, it's one big support group. You don't need to look past your neighbor and say, Nebuch, oh, your son, her nephew, her uncle, her aunt. Everybody has a tragedy. So what is the secret? How do you pull yourself up in the morning after such horrible trial? What people doing it? And in this Torah portion is one example where the Talmud tells us a story. Remember, nothing is extra in the Torah. If it's there, there's a reason it's there. The Talmud tells the story that in the time of the Babylonians who came from Iraq, they conquered Israel, right? They destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, and they slaughtered and murdered, like a Holocaust, thousands, and what they didn't do to the Jewish people in Israel. Every crime, every horror they inflicted on the Jewish people. And when this all began, there were three great rabbis and leaders, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And the king, Nebuchadnezzar, was such a cruel person. Nebuchadnezzar is the great-grandfather of Vashti from the Purim story. And Nebuchadnezzar called these three rabbis, arrested them, and said, listen, either you're going to worship idolatry or I kill you. I need to set an example for all the people to see, to show them that you have acquiesced and given up your Judaism. And of course, they said, absolutely not. Especially in public, to be a disgrace of God in public, you rather death than disgrace God's name. So he took all three and he threw them into a giant furnace, burnt them alive. But when they opened the furnace door, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were standing whole. God made a miracle. And imagine the humiliation of Nebuchadnezzar. The same story happened with Abraham. Remember, they threw him into the furnace because they said, oh, you don't want to worship idolatry? You're a bad example. We're going to kill you. And they opened up, there was an orchard in the fire, and he was walking in the orchard. So there was a terrible debacle for Nebuchadnezzar. So now the Talmud says, and then we don't hear anything about Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. What happened to them? Where are they? So they survived the furnace, right? Tremendous miracle. But the Talmud says, where did they go? Rabbi Yochanan writes, they went up to Israel. They married, and they had sons and daughters. This is all we know about them. What does this one line tell us? That the Jewish people are thrown time and time again into the furnaces of Auschwitz, the furnaces of Treblinka, the furnaces of October 7th. The same torture methods and barbarism that they did in the time of Nebuchadnezzar, they did now on October 7th of 2025, burnt people alive, babies in ovens. Horrible. Barbarians. And what do the Jewish people do? They go up to Israel, they marry, and they have sons and daughters. The Jewish people, what is the secret for a person who goes through tragedy, pain, trauma, abuse, even simple challenges in life? We get up we get married, and we have children. We get up in the morning, we wash our hands, we say, thank you, God, for giving me life. And we continue on. That's our secret. We don't wallow, we don't set up DPT, displaced person camps, and we're refugees, because you know what, in 1901, we were refugees. You ever saw refugee camps with the Jews? Only the DP camps after the Holocaust, till we got our footing. Do you see DP camps now with Jews in little tents saying, oh, yeah, we were oppressed, we were burnt alive. We pick up and we go. That is our strength, our power. The Torah doesn't mention other than, where did these three sages go? They went back to Israel. They got married and they had children. That's our secret. That's our secret. And any way we look at it, any way we do, a beautiful insight when the Jews came to America after the Holocaust. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, assumed leadership. His father-in-law passed away, and he assumed leadership. Now, this was not an easy leadership. Who did the Rebbe inherit? A generation of Jews that were broken, demoralized, came out of Europe with nothing. And what did the Rebbe do? How did the Rebbe take this generation of broken Jews and build them into what we are today? A very interesting formula the Rebbe used. The Rebbe said to every one of those Jews who came to him, and remember, it was a small group, it wasn't millions, go out and help another Jew get back on his feet. You have a little business now in the Lower East Side? Give the guy Schmedel, who just came out of the DP camp, give him a job. You open up a shul and start making a minyan. You open up a Chabad house over there on the corner of Delancey Street. The Rebbe empowered every Holocaust survivor to become a giver of light. So when once every Jew is now empowered, not to look back, but say, I'm going to get married, have children, and do for others, this rebuilt Jewry. It's a simple formula. What a powerful formula. But didn't mean the Rebbe didn't commiserate and cry with the pain of every Jew. But then the guy said, what, Rebbe, what should we do? What should we do? People ask themselves, where am I? I'm a nobody now. Everything was taken from me. The Rebbe said, no, you have light to share. You will share your light in any way you can. So this is our secret. When Adam and Chava lost their child to their other son who murdered, remember the story, I'm going to bring it back. What did God say? There's no rationale. We can't explain it. It's like the mitzvah of burying someone. You're not going to get back anything because a person is gone. Do goodness because it's goodness. For no other reason. Every Holocaust survivor could have said, why should I do for someone else? No one did for me. Look what happened to me. But by doing for others, unwarranted kindness, unwarranted goodness, you rebuild yourself because it gave you purpose and meaning. And when you do for someone else, it brings you joy. I don't know why, but it does. Whenever you wake up in a bad mood, this is my secret. Call someone that needs a phone call. And you'll see within 5 minutes, you'll feel better. It just works. I can't tell you how many times I woke up on the left side of the bed. And I didn't even tell them why I was calling them. Like, I'm just calling to check in. How are you? Oh, Freida, wow. Can't believe you're calling me such a busy day. And I'm thinking to myself, lady, if you would know the place I'm in today, you wouldn't want to talk to me. But within 5 minutes of uplifting spirit, boom, I hung up the phone. I'm like, wow, I feel better now. I'm ready to get out of bed. She doesn't know I'm in my lounge pants and t-shirt, feeling depressed. But that's what it is. That's how we're wired. And that's the difference between us and the barbarians. When we had Gaza, it was flourishing. It was a hot houses of fruits and vegetables and life. And they got Gaza. They built terror tunnels, torture chambers. A Jew gets a piece of land and we have the cave of Machpelah. That's what we do. That's what we do. So the Torah portion is saying, Chaya Sara, what's the secret of life? Even in death, there's life if you have what to contribute to the world. And if you have nothing to contribute, then you're the walking dead, like that famous TV show. And how does the Torah portion end? With the next generation. Yitzchak brings his beautiful bride to the tent of his mother. And a miracle happens. What's the miracle? It says that Yitzchak brings Rivka ha'ohala Sara to the tent of Sarah. Why doesn't it just say he brought her to the tent? Why the? Hey. So Rashi says there's something in Hebrew grammar called hey hayidiyah. That when we want to highlight something, we use a hey hayidiyah. Ha'ohala Sara. The tent. The tent. Not any tent. What does this mean? And Rashi says, and we'll end with this beautiful thing, that Sarah had 3 miracles every day. Anybody remember the 3 miracles of Sarah? It's the 3 famous mitzvahs that women are, we're obligated in all the mitzvahs, but these are the highlighting mitzvahs. One is, go ahead, lighting Shabbos candles. The second is challah, right?
Yeah.
We do the mitzvah of hafrashas challah. When we bake challah, we take off a piece of the dough. And the third thing is mikvah, family purity. And that was symbolic. So Sarah, when she lit Friday evening, early evening Shabbos candles, they stayed lit a whole week, like a miracle, until she had to relight. The second thing is that when she baked her challah, it had a unique taste, which I'll explain in a minute. And the third miracle, there was always a cloud of God over her tent, which is symbolic of family purity, mikvah, and the mitzvahs of mikvah. Now, when Yitzchak brings Rivka to the tent, before he marries her, he has to see the final test. And when he brings her into the tent and she lit Shabbos candles, they remained lit. When she baked challah, that had the unique taste, and the cloud of Hashem came back over the tent. Remember, when Sarah passed away, all this disappeared. Avram lit Shabbos candles, nothing happened. It stayed lit for a few hours. When Rivka takes over, the 3 miracles reappear, which tells Yitzchak what? She is the next matriarch of the Jewish people. And this is how the Torah portion ends. Not with sadness, renewal, rebirth. It's horrible that Sarah passes away. But now look, her daughter-in-law and son are going to continue the legacy. Sarah lives on. Chaya Sara. That's how you see the measure of true life. Generational wealth, generational spiritual wealth. So to me, Sarah is my heroine. If I could be even 1/4% of her greatness, we'll be okay here. We'll be okay. We'll be okay.
I love that.
So this is how we end the Torah portion of the week. And hopefully it gives us inspiration to continue in doing. Does anybody want to add anything?
Oh.